Hey, this is Joel Baker with American Giants. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska, and I have been wanting to come here for a very long time to do a story on two very special Uniroyal girls that were kind of sisters and owned by the same guy at one point in time. This is the story of Lyle Klein and Lyle's Tires and the Uniroyal girls that he had. And I thought we'd do a deep dive into their history today and spend some time here in town, and also reveal the fact that she is here. Most people don't know that there is a Uniroyal girl in Omaha today that you can visit. Let's go check it out. The girl's kind of in a side building here with a very tall ceiling that's on display, and she kind of overlooks a bit of the showroom here. There's two buildings on this property, but if you swing around here, this is actually where the shirt and the skirt reside, kind of in a storage area. And I thought the colors were really interesting on this one. They went with a black skirt and a white shirt, so black and white. I don't think I've seen any other Uniroyal girl painted like that. But they have plans eventually to put the shirt and skirt on her. So there were two girls in Omaha. There was Susie Bell and there was Marge the Muffler Queen, and that's how you did the distinction between the two. Marge, she started out life here in Omaha as part of the Uniroyal Girl promotion program, and when that ended in 68 or 69, she came here. This place was owned by Julius Novak, and it was a Chevrolet Cadillac dealership. You can still see the building behind me, the round storefront there, and then the car bays in the back for repair. Julius had her here for a number of years, but really got tired of looking at her. And eventually he called up his friend Lyle Klein and he said, "Hey, come get this girl out of my sight. I am sick of looking at her." And that's when Lyle Klein came along and took her to his 84th Street location where Susie Bell is actually today. Marge and Susie Bell, interestingly, both came with international fiberglass trailers. And so Marge had one as well back in the very beginning, especially during her days here at Julius Novak. Lyle got Susie Bell from the Uniroyal Girl promotion when she arrived at his store as part of the promotion. And when the promotion ended, he had the option to buy her, and he says he remembers giving like $100 for her. He actually named her Susie Bell because that was the name of his oldest daughter. So it's a nice distinction between Susie Bell and Marge the Muffler Queen. Much of Susie Bell's history is right downtown here in Council Bluffs. Behind me are some of the buildings that she would have stood in front of. And she actually went into quite a legal battle with the city back in the late 80s when Lyle was using her in this area. The city wanted her down and called her an eyesore. What it came down to is you could really read the ordinances and interpret them a few different ways. And so eventually the judge ruled in Lyle's favor and he was able to keep Susie Bell. This is the Broadway United Methodist Church, and during the legal proceedings when the city was trying to get Susie Bell removed from right across the street over there, another complaint was coming in from the church members here that said Susie Bell was way too risque standing right across the street. Now, I believe at the time she had her clothes on, so that's not so bad, but there were times she was at this location in the bikini. In fact, right down the street there's an awesome shot of her from way back in the day with the in front of Lyle's shop. It was an old building that's no longer there, but you can see the Pepsi sign on the side, and Lyle vividly remembers that Pepsi sign. But she came here again later in the 80s, and that's when she ran into a bit of trouble with the church members here who literally would walk out of church on Sunday and look at Susie Bell across the street and they had a problem with that. Susie Bell and Marge the Muffler Queen really moved around Omaha and Council Bluffs. Once Lyle had both of them, he was moving them from store to store every so often. They both came with trailers, which is really interesting. When he got Marge from Julius, she came with a trailer, and he eventually decided he didn't need that trailer, and so he sold it to a lawn mowing company, who returned it in a few hours and said, "This thing is too flimsy and light for us to use." He said they were made from probably $10 worth of parts, he felt. But this is one of the locations where Susie Bell probably stood. We have pictures of her right here on that corner. And again, he moved these giants all over town, did a great job with promotion. This is Blondies. Blondies was a bar right alongside I-80 back in the 70s. And Blondies is part of this intricate history of the two girls that were in Omaha and Council Bluffs. One of Lyle's girls was Marge the Muffler Queen. And Marge was stolen at some point as a prank and taken to a local high school and set up right in front of the entrance of the high school. This is in the late 70s. And Kyle had to go down and get her and took her back, and she was heavily damaged when they took her down, because when you're pulling off a prank, you're not really worried about taking good care of a giant. And so she was busted up really badly. And so I believe at that point in time, the shirt and skirt were discarded because of the damage. But he worked with a fiberglass guy, and he said, "Look, if you fix her up really nice, I'll sell her, and you and I can split the profits." And so that's exactly what they did. They fixed Marge up really nice, and Lyle put her in the paper. Harry Hoyle saw that advertisement in the paper, and he said, "Well, that bikini girl would go great with my bar right alongside I-80 called Blondies." And so he purchased Marge and set her up. Supposedly, it's either on the ground or on the roof. I've heard it's on the roof of Blondies, which is really just this tiny little kind of a double wide looking mobile home. I'm not sure if it really is a mobile home or not, but he set her up back there, and this is in the late 70s and the early 80s. You can see the trucks coming off the interstate off of I-80 right here behind me. And this is a great location for Blondies because it was right here at this intersection, and it was a very well-known local bar. And it was also a great place for the girl to stand because she was right there on the roof and could be seen all around. Of course, Marge got the eye of the city council, as they always do, and people were complaining, "Look, this is the first thing that visitors to Council Bluffs are gonna see, and it's this big bikini girl on top of a bar," and so they wanted her removed. Harry eventually decided that it was time for the big girl to come down. She was a local landmark in the area. Everybody knew her standing up on the roof of this building, and they all knew about Blondies. But Harry took her down and took her to one of his houses south of here, where she laid in the yard. Harry stored her kind of down at the end of his dead-end street here. His house is located there, and he stored her kind of in this area. And at the time, there was no trees back here. So there's a highway on the other side, and people could kind of see her laying on the bank and her feet. So locals knew she was here, and this is all in the late 80s. Harry decided to sell his home here, and a lady named Kathy Jensen and her husband purchased it, and they kind of turned it into a tow yard of sorts. Kathy and her husband really liked the Uniroyal girl that he had here, and so they tried to work it into the sale contract of the home that she would stay. And Harry wasn't having it. He really didn't want the girl to stay, so he removed it from the contract and they re-signed the contract. But Harry said, "I'll allow you to keep her for a little while to get your business going, and then I'm going to take her away." So Kathy and her husband had the girl here. I believe she was laying down, or maybe they stood her up at some point. but she was visible from the street. And around 1990, you have Sean Penn directing a movie called The Indian Runner, and he comes to town with his crew, and they start scouting the whole area for filming locations for this thing. And somehow, through the trees, or maybe from locals, they find out about Kathy and her Marge the Muffler Queen. Now, it's around this point in time that Kathy named her Marge the Muffler Queen, and I believe that's the story anyhow. And this is where she was. And Kathy talks to the director, to Sean Penn and his crew, and they decide on a contract, and they get this Uniroyal girl. And Sean actually mentions this in interviews he's done about production of The Indian Runner. It's kind of fascinating, and they kind of laugh about it, how there was this old tow yard and this lady who had this Marge big statue, and they came here and they got her and they fixed her up and painted her, and they took her down to a park south of here for the actual filming. When they were done, they brought her back to this location and gave her back to Kathy. Now, things weren't going well between Kathy and Harry. Harry said, "Hey, that's mine." And so he came to get her eventually, and Kathy said, "No, you no longer own the girl." And so he had to go through court and pull out all his documents and the contracts of the house sale, and eventually he proved that he was the rightful owner, and he took Marge out of here, and he eventually moved out of state, and he loaded the girl up on the roof of his truck, and they left town. I'm here at Merritt Beach. This is where Sean Penn and his producers decided to film the wedding scene for The Indian Runner. And this is a film that Viggo Mortensen starred in, and it was done right out here. I don't know the exact location they used. 1990 was when they filmed this, and so that is many years ago. The place has drastically changed. I do see a diving platform back there, but doubtful it's the one that was used in the movie. The film crew worked with Kathy Jensen to obtain Marge and brought her down here and put her on that diving platform. It took them a few days to set her up and get the wires attached so she was sturdy, but then and that was on a Saturday when she arrived. But then during the following week, they did all the filming for the wedding scene, and it's pretty cool. Viggo swims out to this diving platform, and the ceremony happens there, and it's definitely an unconventional ceremony. And then the giant is taken down and returned to Kathy Jensen a few miles north of here. So the story of the two girls in Council Bluffs and Omaha is really fascinating. You have Susie Bell and Marge the Muffler Queen, and where Lyle got each of them, and all the journeys they took traveling around town, and then the unique history behind Marge and how she came here for the Indian Runner, and then her history with Blondies, and then being taken completely out of state. These days she's enjoying retirement in a private backyard in a state far, far away. And then Susie Bell, she's still here at one of the locations that Marge stood at and she stood at, and she has been in storage for many, many years, but was recently restored by the family. So it's really an incredible story of survival for both of these girls, which are still in existence today. And I just thought it would be fun to dig into the history and bring you the story of the two girls from Omaha.